So, Mr. Callum, I have a question for you.
Go and shoot.
For you, Batman. What do you call a game show with Theon Greyjoy?
The Price is Reek? I don't know.
That's actually quite funny, but it's not that. It's the Wheel of Torture.
I thought my one was pretty good, and that could have been an answer. I think that's the first time I've given one, and it's actually like just as good. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
The Price of Reek is a very, very good one. Nice
The Price of Reek sounds like a really intense chapter.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah. The Price of Reek.
Yeah.
What's he willing to do to survive?
I don't know. Maybe he's been sold into slavery.
More like forced, really.
How many gold dragons will you offer me for this vegetable? Anyway, hello and welcome to day 9 of the Genesis of Androzani Advent Calendar for 2023. We are here with Game of Thrones Season 5, Episode 6, starting the second half of the season. The full-length reaction will be on Patreon. This episode is called Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, which is the phrase of House Martell of Dawn. And last episode we had Kill the Boy. Kill the boy, Jon Snow, and let the man be born.
Metaphors and all that.
Yep. So, your anticipations for this episode. Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken.
I imagine we didn't get anything on Dawn last episode, so I'm imagining we're bound to probably get a big episode around Dawn, since, you know, they kind of haven't done anything this season so far. Really, in like comparison to other areas of the show that have had big moments so far. So maybe that will be, at very least, next episode or two, Dawn, I imagine, will be a bit more significant, and it probably should be. Other than that, I imagine we'll get some other information about the other two houses referenced in the title, so that will be, I imagine that will be the focus or the biggest moment of the episode. So yeah, other than that, I think that's pretty much it in terms of what I'm thinking might happen in this episode.
Well, last episode we didn't get anything in King's Landing or in Bravos.
No, so yeah, King's Landing, Bravos probably will get a feature this episode. King's Landing definitely, because it's rare to have an episode without King's Landing. If ever really technically we've ever had an episode without King's Landing. If so, it's very rare. I'm looking forward to it. Kind of, but not really. Because, this season.
Yeah, the season's very wobbly.
It's very, very wobbly. It's like, I've noticed more issues than I feel like I probably expected. I guess I expected this season to not be as good as the first 4 seasons based on what you've told me in terms of the trajectory of the show. But I'm surprised at how many issues I found when just casually watching this, really. You know, it's very strange how much more dialogue issues, character issues there are.
Yep.
Daenerys, I was really shocked by. I know that Marine has been, for 2 seasons, been pretty shit, but it's not been so shit where I feel like Daenerys' character has been, ultimately, affected in a way that's oh, okay, you're kind of, your character arc is very strange right now, and you're in a very weird place. That stuff like that.
The thing that's just so fucking frustrating is what they're doing with Tyrion. It's just, God, pisses me off.
That too. I was always expecting the turn based on obviously what happens in season 8, but to go from season 4, like really season 4 to the last episode of season 4, and now we're seeing like sort of the outcome of it all. It's just, why have you gone the way? How have you gone this way with Tyrion, who was probably the best character in season 2 by far, and has sort of just ever since then gone a very slow slope down consistency. And his other peak would obviously the trial in season 4 with that scene, which is probably his best acted scene of the entire show so far. But ever since then, it's just been a weird downward slope in quality.
You'll be fucking your bride with a wooden cock. I miss that, Tyrion.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess there's nothing else to say other than let's continue.
Yep. Yeah. Let's continue down this slippery slope with Game of Thrones season 5, episode 6, Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken.
What is that fucking choir?
You ever tried bamboozled? Oh, sorry,
no.
sorry, not bamboozled, bean boozled.
I know of Bean Boozled, yes.
I feel like this season's like bean boozled.
You think you're getting like sweet cherry, instead you get I don't know, what's something vulgar that could be
Pepper spray.
Pepper spray, there you go. Yeah.
Well, it's just got a mix of, like, you don't know which flavour you're going to get in every scene. You're either going to get a...
Yeah.
Oh, Brian
Other
Coleman.
than The Wall, I think The Wall has been consistent, like...
Well, the Wall is...
a very good standard.
The Wall is the blue one, which is either blueberry or toothpaste, which neither of them are bad flavours.
Yeah. Anyway, we're back here in
and
another
then
part of the season I'm not into.
And then Marine is the black one, which is licorice or pepper spray. So I was like, you can't win with that.
Yeah, licorice is a...
Like, I like the bad blue flavour more than the good black flavour. I had my hair washed today at the hairdresser. I can relate to this. Of course, that lovely music, though, that we listened to a while back.
Left it open. Oh my god. Fucking hell.
What are they doing with the body? Stepmother didn't want any rivals for her precious daughter, so she tried to kill me with poison. I found out. Sought help from the faceless men. Was that true? Or a lie? What? Did you believe every word I said?
Probably the most interesting part about this place so far.
It was a very convincing story.
I'm the youngest daughter of a great lord, Eddard Stark. He died in battle.
That's a lie.
After he was executed.
A lie.
I
Puts him
stabbed him
through
in the
the
gut.
back.
He begged me to kill him, but I wouldn't. I left him in the mountains to die. I wanted him to suffer. I hated him.
Yeah, that's a lie.
I hated him. That's not a lie.
Uh-oh. Well, he's in deep shit, isn't he?
I was fucking the woman I loved.
You can relate to that.
We shall never see his like again. was murdered by his own men.
Not the nicest way to find that out.
No.
There's a lot of faces.
Hmm.
It's practically a library of faces.
Have you ever heard baby dragons singing?
No.
It's hard to be a cynic after that.
Doesn't mean she's going to be a great queen.
No, it doesn't.
Foreshadowing.
Oh, then what? 1,000 years of peace and prosperity?
First, we have to conquer the world.
We?
Like, all we scenes are meant to be, like, pointing out that Daenerys is different. That she's going to break the cycle. That's what the point of these scenes are, but it's like... They completely misread what they fucking did. Hello.
What about the dwarf? Worthless.
As if he would know how much he's worth.
Discuss this.
And then chop off his cock. We'll sell it for a fortune. The dwarf's cock has magic powers. The dwarf lives until we find a cock merchant.
That's a sentence.
Yeah, very strange part of the world.
The men who fight in the pits of Marine will swallow him whole.
I killed a Dothraki blood rider in single combat.
That's actually true.
Yep.
Oh, who has come home?
Oh my god.
Lord Baelish. Lysa was a good woman,
No,
a kind woman.
no.
It was neither of those things. We both know it. Still, I pity her son.
I'll not rest until the lion flies over Winterfell.
And I'll know you're a man of your word when I see Sansa Stark's head on a spike.
As I said, I live to serve.
I don't understand what he wants. he's such a confused character. So they're gonna stealthily make their way into the water gardens through that pack of stocks, I guess. And
Yeah.
no one's
And
gonna
no
ask
one's gonna
them.
be like, hey. Yeah, exactly. No one's gonna be like, hey, who are you two?
They're just gonna go right behind them, and then they won't look behind them.
Yeah, that'll work. Oh yes, it's the cringe squad. The cringe squad. I can't talk. It's a mouthful. Cringe squad. No, something's gonna happen right now, just as they arrive.
Well, she's made herself at home.
That was something stupid. We have to go and sell it now.
You hurt him!
He'll be fine, I promise, but we have to.
Oh no!
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Horribly edited action.
That fucking spin. Fucking Darth Maul wannabe.
I can't tell what's going on.
No, that was weird.
I can't see a damn thing.
Oh my god, she did a kip up and all.
This is appallingly edited.
Hey, at least the music's good.
Yeah.
Oh, at least they didn't get away.
I am Obara San, daughter of Oberyn Martell. I fight for Dorne. Who do you fight for?
Drop your weapons.
Her face. It's that classic. I'm smug. I'm smug face.
I'm a tough person.
When you were whole, it would have been a good fight.
You fight pretty good for a little girl.
Uh,
Oh dear, what am I going to do?
also, how do they find us so quickly? It's almost as if you probably should have had a, I don't know, better plan than that. That just seems like, oh my god, look at all that water. Look at that water outside King's Landing. All that water.
It's the Blackwater Bay.
Oh!
5 miles away. Well, why have we stopped? Go on.
The capital of Westeros smells like shit.
They've got. It's a theatre, nothing more. If they arrested all the pillow biters in King's Landing, there'd be no room left in the dungeons for anyone.
The pillow biters.
Get some rest, dear. You look appalling. And let me deal with Cersei Lannister.
She's come to save the show.
Yeah, save the season.
I have travelled a long way.
You must be exhausted.
Put the pen down, dear. We both know you're not writing anything.
Thorns.
And the famous tart, Queen Cersei.
Beg your pardon. I was as shocked as anyone when the Faith arrested Solaris. I have no love for these fanatics. What can a Queen Mother do? As I said, I didn't imprison anyone. As for your veiled threats.
What veil?
Wow, she's instantly the most just enjoyable character in the season. In just 2 scenes.
I didn't trust your father. I didn't particularly like him. But I respected him. He was no fool. He understood that sometimes we
until the end.
rather than destroy.
Rest assured, Cersei, this feud is not over.
Yeah.
You are aware of the rumors concerning you and Renly?
I don't pay attention to rumors.
Are you the big gay? Why are you gay?
Well, I think that's quite enough of that.
The Faith calls Queen Marjorie forward.
You call me forward?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Questions for you.
Who have they dragged out? There we go. Brothel keeper.
Mr. Oliver of Littlefinger's brothel.
And what occurred in his chamber?
We had very gay sex.
In intimate relations.
Yeah, there you go. That's a nicer way of saying it.
You lay with him.
That night and many others.
Liar.
She walked in on us once, not long ago. She didn't seem surprised.
Take her.
Tommen! Tommen!
I am the Queen.
Tommen! Tommen!
Well, what's going to happen to other man? Because he's still gay.
Well, he is still gay, but he confessed the truth, which is not as bad as lying and being gay.
If you tell the truth about being gay, you get a pass.
Well, he probably doesn't get a pass, but he gets a much better time than lying.
Yeah, I wonder why people would be scared of, professing their sexuality in King's Landing. Oh, I wonder why.
Anyway, back to straight relations. So there, she's washing all the character development out of her.
You don't want to end up like...
Oh, yeah, it didn't last. So how long did that last? That lasted, 7 episodes?
Well, since season 4, episode 8.
Ah, okay. So, 8 episodes.
This doesn't happen in the books.
Yeah, but Connor, we need her iconic red hair.
Ramsay let me come with him on that hunt.
Hunt.
Oh yeah, we killed them all.
And how long have you loved him, Miranda?
Oh, Sansa, you're so clever. You're so clever.
Forever, is that it? And I came along and ruined it.
To be fair, I think most people could pick this up, to be fair.
Go, I can finish on my own.
Oh, I'm annoyed now. This is a Sansa Stark arc I truly wanted, pissing off jealous women. mean, that's what it is, let's be honest.
Well, she can talk back to Miranda, but can she talk back to Ramsay? That's the real question.
Probably not. Oh, look, he's dressed up
To
nicely.
escort you to the Godswood, milady.
It's not as filthy.
If you
Even
please,
Ramsay
milady.
has a bit more standards.
Oh well, poor Reek.
Mm.
I kind of wish they went full white hair with Reek like they did in the books, where the stress gets to him so badly that he ages.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. How long's he been like in like this? It's got to be like quite a long fucking time now.
Yeah, there's a painting of his description in the book. It's like he's got white hair, dark circles, and like his whole back is covered in red scratches. It's fucking disgusting.
Like where it's all happening, like where this wedding's happening.
Yeah.
Wonder why he picked this specific spot, Ramsay.
Another wedding.
Hmm.
This bloody show and all their bloody weddings.
The snow wedding.
I'm sure this is going to be the most pleasant wedding, isn't it?
Yeah, the dog lying at all does not give a foreboding sort of sad feeling.
Ramsay of House Bolton, heir to the Dreadfort and Winterfell.
I'm sure nothing totally bad will happen in this scene.
Oh, no. You stay here, Reek. You watch.
Yeah, there we go. Ah, what a lovely scene. What a lovely way to end the episode on a wedding day.
We've known Sansa since she was a girl. Now watch her become a woman.
Okay.
Ugh. There's going to be a lot to say in this one. Alright. Your initial thoughts on Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken?
I thought that, in total, I thought it was a perfectly very okay episode. I don't know how to feel, really. I really don't. I thought that in the episode there was stuff that I did like, but it came very much very far between. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that episode. It's yeah, it's a very strange way to end it. That's what I'll say for now.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, there's Yeah.
This is probably, out of all the episodes in the show, this has the biggest, like, historical and reception section when we eventually get to that. Because there's this was a very, very controversial episode when it aired. For quite a few reasons, but the main reason being the final scene. The thing is, it's interesting because I usually will go in order, but I think because it's such a hot topic, I think we'll just talk about Winterfell first.
Yeah.
It's an interesting scenario because I do understand why there is like, because even in the book when it's Jane Poole in this wedding, I do understand why there are some people that just can't get themselves to read it. It is very extreme. And from a Ramsay point of view, this is in character. And from a Reek point of view, this is in character. But I think the reason why for me personally, that scene is so much worse in the show is because it's Sansa Stark and her character is so... This was such a really massive blunder putting her in this story, I think, because when you consider her everything she's gone through, like there was that scene in season 2 when she was almost raped by one of the people in Flea Bottom, and the Hound saved her, and then on learning from Cersei and then eventually escaping after Joffrey's death and learning from Littlefinger, she develops a sense of confidence, a sense of intelligence, an ability to play the game. Not only having Littlefinger give her to Ramsay makes no sense for his character, but by stripping her of... They literally have Miranda wash the black hair out in this episode. But by having her in this storyline, which Jane Paul was in the books, it just feels like she's going back to square one. And it's like they're completely reversing all of that hard work they've done with her character, and she's gone back to being a victim again, and it's actually worse than it was the first time.
Yeah.
It is... It's not necessarily a bad idea to do a disgusting scene like this for a Ramsay Bolton wedding. I just think I just think it's disgusting in the wrong way. And I think that the main ingredient that is fucked up here is Sansa being in it. That's the part that doesn't work for me. Because it doesn't fit her character. And when you have it... When it was Jane Poole in the books in this wedding, it was still disgusting. But it was disgusting in a different way. Especially because it's told from Theon's point of view, and there's a lot of differences in the sense that they are advertising it as Ramsay is marrying Arya Stark, even though he isn't. I just think this is another example of Dave and Dan wanting to do all the same scenes, but just changing characters and changing elements of it too much, to where it doesn't actually benefit the characters. I don't know. It's a tough scene to dissect, I think, because I feel like there's a very subjective thing when it comes to what level of extreme is too much for TV.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that hate this episode because they hate that this scene is in it.
I mean, yeah, it's. I know. I've always known that there was a specific episode involving Ramsay and Sansa that was well regarded as not good. So yeah, and now I learn as to why. And yeah, it's a very difficult topic to discuss, whether you can do something like this and have it be like in a case like good, like well done, you know, within the narrative. It's a very strange one. And in terms of I think it's understandable why normie public opinion about this episode would be soured and would not be up to, like,
it's because it's very sensitive.
It is. So, but I guess this sort of there's something about it that just doesn't feel like it's. It feels more so the scene is just trying to have this like absolutely vile moment just because, well, it's Ramsay, therefore it needs to be absolutely vile.
Yeah, they've cut out a lot of the really interesting stuff with him and Eirich, the stuff that actually makes his character three-dimensional, whereas in the show he's just extremely horrid. This season, obviously,
this feels like the most like. Incredibly evil for the sake of being evil Ramsay has been, I think.
Yeah.
That's sort of what my sort of thought process is right now. It's like, because we talked about it either last episode or a couple episodes ago, how he doesn't feel like a character that's insane for the sake of it. He's obviously deranged, but he still has a sense of feet on the ground in a way, in order to blend in.
Some of the stuff they did with him and his dad in the last episode was actually quite good.
It was very good, I would say, but this feels like. By the way, Ramsay is the most evil person, like legitimately evil, because this is pure evil. It's
the way
not only the rape, it's also the making Theon watch.
Yeah, the situation has also changed as well. So in this scene, Ramsay rapes her, and he makes Reek watch him rape her. In the book scene, what happens is that Ramsay forces Reek to eat out Jane Poole. And that's how the chapter ends. It is still.
You know what's so fucking weird? I literally thought like 2 minutes ago, like, what if they did this scene where they had Reek go down on Sansa? Would that even then? That's still like. That would feel a lot more in the case of in Ramsay head. It feels like that would relate him a little bit to Joffrey in some ways.
Yeah, well,
where he's. Yeah, if you get what I mean.
Well, it goes something along the lines of oh, Reek, I need you to get her ready for me, and Reek obeys him.
That could even be yeah.
It just.
Don't know if that would be I don't know if that would be overall majorly better, but yeah,
it wouldn't work with Sansa Stark though. It just doesn't fit her character.
No.
It doesn't work for her character. Because Jane Poole's character arc is that she is a tragic character. She goes through a lot of shit, whereas Sansa, by the end of season 4, was on the heights, and she had developed that sense of playing the game with the Veil. But it's just
and now all of a sudden this season she's been married off to Ramsay Bowen.
Yeah, because they just because Dave and Dan were just
Fingers plan.
Yeah, Dave and Dan were just we can't be bothered to do the stuff in the Veil in the book, so we'll just have her take the place of Jane Poole. But that doesn't work for her character. It's so contradiction. Because one of the thematic things about A Feast of Crows and A Dance with Dragons, as a collective, is that Sansa is at the height of heights, and her best friend Jane Poole is at the lowest of lows. They're at opposite ends, but by just combining them together, you get this weird zigzag with her character, and I think it's a really poor decision to do that, and it really upsets everything that made her character interesting, and everything that. All that work they did over 4 seasons is just kind of flushed down the toilet.
A little bit.
The connection with Theon does function, but I feel like it functions more so. It functions more so because of who Theon is, not because of who she is.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's more because I was thinking just before the actual wedding scene, I was thinking this is this makes sense, and this is really well done in how a Stark is reacting to Theon post what he did in season 2, and it's really good, and it's it plays the fact of him being Reek and trying to be the person with this sort of history.
Also, this just kind of this really makes Littlefinger look stupid, because he knew this would have happened. He had to have known.
Surely he knew that. Because he's Littlefinger, he would have surely known that Tyrion obviously did not touch Sansa anyway, therefore she was still a virgin, and also something like this was going to happen when marrying Ramsay.
So question is, why would he ever expect Sansa to trust him again after this?
No, after there's no way Sansa thought in any way that he'll. On our wedding day, he will forcefully have sex with me and make Theon watch, intensely. Just everything about it, not just the rape, it's also the outside, insanity of it all. that just makes it like even more fucked up. It's surely like, next time Sansa sees Littlefinger, she was gonna be like, I don't ever want to talk to you ever again. You sold me away to be raped, like pretty much. That's what you did, and it's sort of making me feel like, what is his goal? What has been Littlefinger's goal this season?
Well, that's just, I mean, because the things that he says to Cersei in this episode just sow even more confusion.
I don't know what he's trying, and it's not a case of, he's got this bigger, higher plan that we don't know about, or it's being hinting at. It's like, right now, I generally don't know what he wants at the moment. I don't know if he's trying to stay in the circle of Cersei / King's Landing, so he has security. I don't know. It's really strange.
Back in season 3, when he says to Varys, chaos is a ladder, the reason why he says that is because he's able to foresee what will happen if he puts two sides against each other and he sits in the background. But there is an actual method to it, whereas here it just feels like he's doing chaos for the sake of it and he's just rolling the dice.
It's like, why did they go to Winterfell? Why did he set Sansa up with Ramsay? Why is he now gone to try and stay in the circle with Cersei? What is the ultimate goal here?
Yep.
What is like the end goal?
Whereas what makes sense?
The chaos with ladders thing is not only the fact that it's like watching from afar, it's him rising in the ranks, and that's all. That's what he's been trying to do. It's not just at the very least what I've gathered. It's like he is very much someone who's trying to earn his way up to the top in a very background way, but with the difference between him and Varys is Varys is trying to like stay out of conflict, while Littlefinger is like perpetrating it in certain ways where he's still there, you know, and is also rising in ranks for gain.
Whereas what makes sense, and this is what happens in the books, is Tywin Lannister gives Jane Poole over to the Boltons and tells them that it's Arya as a thank you for the Red Wedding. That makes sense. You know, and Arya was originally betrothed to one of the Frey children, but Walder Frey allows it because Roose Bolton played a major role in the Red Wedding. So Ramsay gets betrothed to supposedly Arya Stark, who is actually Jane Poole, and that actually works, as opposed to what's happening here, where Littlefinger is just doing it, and it is literally just the writers just had to find a way to do the same story with a different character, and it's made Littlefinger look really dumb as a result.
Sure, like, there's got to be a scene where he surely knows this was going to happen, or if they make it act as if this was unforeseen, or even if it's just very strange. It's just very strange.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know what his role in the show is right now.
So what happens with Sansa's character now that she's completely regressed to the lowest of lows?
Victim. To victim, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like it's... Yeah, last season was her, like... You know, getting out of that sort of victim phase of what's happened to her in 4 seasons and try and... Not, like, fight back or anything, but just being a bit more like she is now... You know, she's in a place of security and she's going to now probably do stuff to try and aid as she can. Maybe.
She was at the start of season 4. She was Cersei's prisoner and Joffrey's victim.
Yes.
By the end of season 4, she was basically heir to the Vale, which is a huge deal.
And now she's back to being the victim of Winterfell.
Yeah, and she's arguably in an even worse place than she was in King's Landing.
In a sense, yeah.
Getting raped in her own home. Yeah. I don't dislike it for the reasons the public dislikes it. I dislike it because I dislike the character dynamics.
The public dislike it because it's like, oh, we can't have disturbing rape scenes in TV shows. Like, you can if it's like well done characters, because let's be honest, this stuff is like, it can be explored to sort of explore why someone would even go to that sort of lengths, and they can be like extremely fucked up as a person. Like, it's not paying it in a way as like it's not acceptable.
Well, and also you got to
It's,
remember, you've also, and this is another massive thematic difference, is the point of that scene in the books is supposed to be for Theon's character, whereas in the show it's for Sansa's character.
Yeah. It's overall it's just a very, very strange decision to make.
Yep. It's odd though, because the scene with, outside of the fact that they've completely removed her black hair, which just pisses me off, but the scene with Miranda was actually quite good. It just didn't lead to anything because she showed bravery and then immediately lost it.
Like, I think it's a perfectly fine scene. I think it's, in terms of the entire scope of Game of Thrones and character interactions, it's like, to sum it up, this person who is also on the same sort of level of craziness as Ramsay is jealous that he is marrying someone else who she sees as more pretty. And that's kind of it. That's kind of what her character is right now, and it's not entirely engaging. It's something, and
well, they,
what they did if they were to further explore it, it could be something actually quite interesting to get something from.
Well, Miranda mentioned 3 women who had died before, and 2 of them appeared on screen. So one of them was one of them was Violet, who was in season 3. She was one of the ones that was seducing Theon in prison. And she died at their hands. And then the third one they mentioned was the one that died at the start of season 4, that was hunted down by, hunted down in the forest. What that scene did in isolation was Sansa Stark was saying, yes, but I'm not like them. I'm much more valuable to Ramsay than you are. And that's not going to happen to me. And if anything, the person who's going to get tossed aside is you. The problem with that scene is that it's all for nothing, because Sansa actually can't control Ramsay, despite being a really talented manipulator by this point. She isn't able to control Ramsay. So it's actually... It's like 2 completely different characters were in this one episode with Sansa. Yeah, it's a mess. Yep.
Yeah, Winterfell. Yeah, it's a really sad way to end the episode.
Yeah, it's not nice. Right, I want to move on. We can get back to it when we get to actually reading people's reception of it. Let's talk about Braavos.
Yeah.
Braavos was interesting. There was a lot of esoteric stuff. I still think the lack of internal monologue is massively hurting Arya's storyline, because it doesn't give us enough of her actual feelings, memories, thoughts. However, what I will say is, the thing that she learned how to do is how to pretend to be someone else. She firstly encountered the waif, wasn't allowed through the door. The waif told her a story that sounded convincing, and then she said, was that a truth or a lie?
That was really good. I thought that was actually really well done.
They used the House of Black and White Raymond Javadi music to sow that doubt in Arya's mind, which is a really nice detail. And when she lied to that girl who was, terminally ill and killed her with the water, Jaqen H'ghar finally saw that Arya had the ability to lie convincingly. There was that scene where Jaqen was whipping her, saying, describe what happened, and she would try and say things, and then he'd say, lie. It's like a game of truths and lies. I loved the detail of, and I hated him, and she whips him. He whips her and whips her because she didn't hate the Hound. She actually loved the Hound, but she just...
Yeah, she thinks she does, but she doesn't really.
Yeah. Deep down, she actually loves the Hound like a brother.
It's a sort of thing where it is just denial.
She wants to hate him, but she can't.
No. Yeah.
And
because she learned who he really was, really. She can't hate the person he is because of what he has, what he is.
It also makes her not choosing to kill him it's more multi-layered, because... On the surface, it would appear as, I hate him so much that I want him to just rot away instead of me stabbing him. But because of this scene, it seeds the question of, subconsciously, was it more like, I want to kill him, but I just can't. I can't bring myself to do it. That there is a duality to that. of course, once she passes that test, Jaqen H'ghar brings her into the Hall of Faces. Which means that he can now trust her to pretend to be someone else. Maybe not pretend to be no one, but she's making progress. You know, she's leveling up, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually thought this was probably the most substantive this arc has had this season. So, yeah, it's a good change of pace at the very least. I really do like the was that the truth or a lie scene. I actually thought that was like really well performed because she put on an act. The actual character put on an act in putting like her sort of like you know, in terms of how she moved and how she talked and how she like looked. It was very, very convincing, and like for Aya to think that she was telling the truth. And yeah, I thought that was a really good scene.
What I loved about it is that by the end of that little story she tells, it's like, oh my god, she's actually quite a likable person, and then she flips it on you.
Was that a truth or a lie? Yeah.
This is the University of Gaslighting, is what it is. But
yeah, I thought everything in Bravos was actually like substantive, you know, more than anything else throughout the season.
Yeah, not amazing stuff. It's
very simple stuff.
Yeah, it's missing some of the really juicy character elements that you get from the books, but it's just a case of Dave and Dan not really being able to allow Arya's inner monologue to really display on screen. They don't do scenes of her talking about her thoughts or expositing or anything. They kind of strip it back quite a lot, which is why you get a lot of scenes of her wiping bodies with music, and it makes it ominous, but it's not. There is more to it than meets the eye in terms of what is intended by the story, but the TV show, at least in this episode, it does something decent with it. And whilst I still don't agree with the point of Jaqen H'ghar being the kindly man, I think that the actor is so good that it kind of makes up for it. Yeah. Something a bit more esoteric. So yeah, good, decent stuff in Bravos. I actually think the first 20 minutes of this episode was some of the most consistent stuff we've had in season 5. I would say yes. I would say that. Yeah. Once we get to Littlefinger and Cersei, that's when it falls off a cliff. But the first 20 minutes was quite decent.
Yeah. So once we all the stuff with Bravos and and the other two. Thought that was actually already good, and we'll get to that in a sec. But yeah, I think the first like half of this episode was like pretty good.
Yeah.
Then the sort of second half happens, and I have words.
Yeah, this is a very, very disliked episode by a lot of people, and I think the second half is the reason why.
Yes, I would definitely say so. I think we'll get to. We've talked about it, but we'll also get to the other part.
Oh yeah, we'll get to. we'll get to that. We will get to that. So let's talk about Tyrion, Jorah Mormont, and the Slavers.
Yes, I actually have nice things to say about this.
Jorah Mormont learned that his father died.
Yes, and that was really well acted. Literally, honestly, the only problem I had with any of the scenes of them together this episode was literally just him talking about killing his father, because it just harkens back to that shit episode.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say is that some of the color grading was inconsistent. It was a bit the cuts on the beach scenes were really
it's not
jarring.
As yellow as it normally is. It's not as like
It didn't feel like Essos. It felt like Dragonstone. It was very strange.
It feels a bit more grey. There was a lot more greyed out colours than the usual sort of like yellowness of it all.
It felt more
sunset colour.
It felt more European rather than Asian, is what I would say.
A little bit, yeah. It felt more like they were hanging out in winter, like in like the north or something, like going north.
hot weather north.
Yeah.
Anyway,
In a way, yeah.
But yeah, there was some actually quite good stuff with Tyrion and Jorah Mormont in this. This is mildly based off. I mean, the Jorah finding out his dad dies doesn't actually happen in the books because the small council meetings don't take place because the timelines are much more squashed. In the show, Tyrion finds out after the Red Wedding and before Joffrey's death, because there's a bit more space between those events in the show.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's something that I don't have issues with him finding out, because would get around.
No, they make it work because the show is structured that way. There's a whole small council meeting that happens after the Red Wedding and before Joffrey's wedding, purple wedding. So they make it work. And it kind of makes for a good scene where Jorah kind of finds out, like, that line where Tyrion says, you know, there'll be none like him again, and then Jorah slowly realizes what he means by that.
Yeah, that's really good attention to detail in terms of, like, what lines people use and what language they use in terms of talking about people.
And kind of how Tyrion was talking about him earlier in the conversation in past tense, and it went over Jorah Mormont's head. You know, he was such a great fighter. Then, of course, they get caught by the slavers. You want to cut off a dwarf's cock. And then they talk about the fighting pits. Tyrion tries to make up some tall story. Interestingly, talking about before how Arya told a tall story and it went well for her. Tyrion tries to tell a tall story about Jorah Mormont, beating Jaime Lannister in a fight. I love the world-building element of the slavers don't respect jousting because it's nothing compared to a bloodshed fight.
It's not like actual fighting because you're on a horse, you're just pointing a big stick at each other and just hitting them. Like, it's describing it in a way is like, it's understandable why a lot of like actual fighters in like I say in quotations, like would look at that and think like that fucking pansy, whatever like language they would want to use, like fucking theatrical fighting fuck off, like that sort of way they would like look at it. You know, I thought it was quite funny. I
mean, they look at someone like Loras Tyrell in the joust and be like, you're not a champion fighter, what are you talking about?
You as a fucking fighter. Yeah, they would have that sort of like reaction to him.
But then of course Mormont brings up the fact that he killed the Dothraki blood rider in combat, which was true. It happened in season 1.
Season 1.
Yep. Single-hand combat.
This is, it's really good. It's nice to see him now be back to being smart again after last episode.
Yeah, that's true.
Not actually trying to get out of situations in a way that actually, works.
There's
and the fact that they learnt about the fighting pits being reopened, it didn't feel too unnatural.
Yeah, this is a massively shortened version of what happens in the books. This takes up about 6 chapters. And obviously, I mentioned before, they have the female dwarf character Penny with them. They meet a guy called Makoro who has, relations to, like, there's other elements of the story that connect to it. There's a lot that goes on in that part of the story that they've cut out, but the part where they get caught by slavers and get taken to Slavers Bay is there. It's just massively shortened and they kind of define it down to its pure essence. The thing that I will say though, that they definitely cut out a lot of is that in the books, Jorah Mormont gets absolutely brutalized daily and he's unrecognizable after all the beatings they give him. I think if there was more of that, it would really emphasize the, how nasty that part of the world is. But, they still get something across at the very least. Caught by a bunch of, pirates in the middle of nowhere. And they're going to make their way to the fighting pits in Meereen. Which is... I
imagine that, and that will be the way they meet up with Daenerys again, I imagine. That was a bit of a prediction.
Yeah. So, I think they did pretty well with Tyrion and Jorah here.
Yeah, I would agree.
I also really like the conversation that Jorah had with Tyrion about how he stopped being cynical after he saw Daenerys and the dragon eggs hatch in the fire. You know, it changed his whole worldview. And that's part of, you know, his whole arc in season 1 of he originally was trying to get her killed as a command by Robert Baratheon. But then he changed his mind because he fell in love with her. And then after that, he saw her dragon eggs hatch and he dedicated his life to her, which is why he wants to go back, because he's stubborn and has no other purpose. The things I do for love.
Yep.
Absolute simp. Yeah. I really like, I think this season Ian Glenn is giving us a really different performance because he's way more desperate.
Yes.
And we're seeing the more vile side of his character. You know, usually we see either the jealous side or we see the calm sort of advisory side, or we see the sword fighting side. But with Daenerys, he was very tender and very vulnerable, whereas with Tyrion, he's a lot more, you know, he seems way more desperate and a lot more, you know, he's not as kind and as, he doesn't use as much of his manners as he usually would. We're seeing a bit more of the Jorah we saw in season 1 with Viserys, if you remember that scene in the tent where he says, "And here I stand." So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff in the East, which is a change from the usual. Usually the stuff in the East isn't very good this season, but the stuff in Braavos and the stuff with Tyrion and Jorah actually kind of worked.
Yeah, it was pretty decent.
Yep. Now we move to King's Landing.
Okay.
I have very, 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 very mixed feelings about King's Landing this episode. There's a lot of good and there's a lot of not good.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So we'll talk about the
what is Littlefinger's fucking plan?
Yeah, that's the worst part. Is Littlefinger? What the fuck is he doing?
I'm honestly so lost. I don't know what he's
making.
It feels like they're trying to have him be a character who's always moving around and always making plans, trying to deceive everyone. I'm always one step ahead. I'm always 3 steps ahead. That's what it feels like in terms of just thinking about like narrative.
He's making these random alliances with opposing sides. It seems
alliances, plans. That's what he is. That's his character.
What, he's volunteering to bring the Knights of the Vale into battle against Roose Bolton for Cersei.
Why? What's the point?
I don't understand.
I like he said like, oh, but what do you lose? It's like, yeah, but you're losing, like, your reputation is going to be fucking through the gutter if something bad happens, surely, right?
Also, he's taking a risk. He's not only going against the Boltons, but he's going against Stannis Baratheon and the Night's Watch. And the Wildlings. Claiming Winterfell when you've got White Walkers.
Like, he's trying to, like, he wants to be Warden of the North. It's like, okay.
You know what I don't understand as well.
It's gonna happen?
What I also don't understand is he's taking a massive risk because you've got so many layers of people you have to deal with up there. Firstly, you have to get past the Boltons, then you have to get past Stannis and the Wildlings, then you have to get past Jon and the Night's Watch, and then after that you have to get past the White Walkers. It's like, there's just an immense amount of pressure.
3 out of 4 he actually does know about, so yeah.
Like you want to, and you know, obviously there's been rumors about the White Walkers, and if he believes them, then that's the fourth one.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's so much pressure.
That's so much like effort. That's so much like things need to fall in your way, and right now they're really not. There's a lot of factors here that he's not in the strongest hand to be able to achieve.
Whereas in King's Landing, no Tywin Lannister, no Tyrion, no Jaime. The Tyrells are vulnerable. The king is a child. Like, there's so much vulnerability in the south.
Oh yeah.
Because you know what would have really made sense is if he stayed in the mountains in the Vale with Sansa. Because that's what happens in the books, and it's really good.
And yeah, and sort of just like pick his moment. It's okay. I feel like he's a character like, I need to pick my moment right now. There's a lot of vulnerability everywhere.
I love the idea in the books that he is the mockingbird staying on top of the mountain in the sky watching the wars below, and then he'll come to pick up the scraps when it's over. That is Littlefinger. But what he does here makes no fucking sense. And it's ridiculous. Yeah. Although he does get a good line with Lancel Lannister, I will say. That was quite funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, just... I don't know what they're doing with him. I really don't.
Yeah. I think Cersei's character stays consistent in this episode. It's just she's interacting with storylines that aren't. She's being weaved into things where she is the best part in it, but it's not. The other ingredients aren't fitting right. Because I do love the fact that she completely just lies through her teeth, and then once the plan has been put into place and both Marjorie and Loras are in prison, she gives Olenna that look and says, "See, look, I fucking beat you, you old hag," once again. So I do think the Cersei elements work, and I think Lena Headey's performance really illustrates all this. But just that whole scene with Littlefinger, it just feels so awkward because she's responding to something that shouldn't be happening, and she's just it's such a weird conversation. Like she was in an alliance with Roose Bolton because of her father, but now she's against him because of Littlefinger. It's just very frustrating. We have the return of Olenna Tyrell, and she's great, as always.
Yep, as always.
Yep. I could smell the shit from here.
Great introduction. But...
Renly shagged half of the squires in King's Landing. But he's the king's brother, and Loras is the queen's brother, and I will not have it. You look dreadful today. Like, she says that to her own granddaughter. You look dreadful today.
Yeah.
But Cersei has outwitted her this time, and she has a lot of more, she's had a lot of big head start on her side with Olenna leaving.
Yeah.
This is almost like a bit of karma for Olenna killing Joffrey, isn't it?
Yes.
Because by having to leave the capital, she's let all of her grandchildren out of her sight, and it's allowed Cersei to put them in very dire situations.
Yeah.
I think the High Sparrow's character is very consistent with what he would believe. But I still, like I said in the first episode of season 5, yes, they have set it up, but the fact that Loras Tyrell's character, instead of being dedication to Renly, joining the Kingsguard, never lay with another man because of my singularity, and having that dynamic with Jaime and then going to try and reclaim Dragonstone for his family, and to, fuck up Stannis, would be so much better than what they're doing here, which is just his character is that he's gay, and that's bad because the High Sparrow said so. And the Faith of the Seven is...
he's not really a character in the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah. And, they have the Oliver character from Littlefinger's brothel. It was set up in season 3. Littlefinger started that thread.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that whole thing of, he has that mole on his leg that looks like Dawn, and Marjorie caught them, walked in on them. It kind of lines up with what they end up doing with Loras, and they have both of them lie and get caught lying, which means that the High Sparrow has the ability to lock them in for a formal trial. So logistically, they've found a way to do it. I just think thematically and for the characters, it's not what I would think would be the ideal way to handle this Tyrell situation. I think it's trying too hard to, go into... I think maybe Dave and Dan thought this would be a good idea because of the time it came out. 2015 is very different to back in when, you talk about like 2005 when A Feast for Crows came out, 10 years earlier. The sort of LGBT elements of the show are much more a hot topic in the meta when this show came out compared to when the books came out. I think maybe Dave and Dan wanted to feature that more so that the audience could relate to it, because it's you know, it's a modern issue, and they're using an archaic religion to sort of dive into that. But I just think it devalues Loras Tyrell's character to do so, because the Kingsguard version of Loras, to me, with him staying faithful to Renly even after his death, is a much more interesting version of that. So yeah, I have mixed thoughts on King's Landing. You give your sort of rundown.
No, yeah, I pretty much am just in agreement. Cersei and the High Sparrow are sort of the best characters in King's Landing right now, because they're on a very consistent trajectory right now. And yeah, like I said during the reaction, he is just, at the moment, the character is just very much just he's gay and therefore that's bad. Obviously because of the High Sparrow and obviously all of their religion and stuff. It's I really wish that he was a bit more of a character. It doesn't feel like Renly's death has really affected him. Like, in terms of now that the dust has sort of settled on that, what is his like sort of thought process now? Where is he at as a person now? After, you know, everything they have on Blackwater and the Purple Wedding and all that. What is his... And we're not really getting that. The most was the scene that was referenced in this episode where he was fucking and Marjorie walked in and they just sort of had a chat, and that's all he's really done this season.
The other issue I have is that it makes his homosexuality quite superficial, because it seems to be very sexually motivated as opposed to romantically. Like,
yes, and that was sort of
the reason why his connection with Renly works so well is not because he was fucking him; it's because he loved him. He loved him,
because it was not literally because he's a gay person. It's because he loved this person like deeply, like he really loved this person.
Yeah. And I prefer the version...
It's not about being gay, it was about being in love with someone, you know?
And that is the difference between Book Loras and Show Loras, is that Book Loras' character is built on the fact that he was in love with Renly Baratheon, whereas Show Loras is built on him having sex with Renly Baratheon is what led to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very focused on the sexual element of it, and it makes it seem a bit one-dimensional compared to the three-dimensional version of it that is much more interesting, in my opinion. And like I said, from a world-building perspective, not having the Tyrells try to reclaim Dragonstone is silly, because Stannis has left it wide open, and it's a very valuable castle. And trust me when I say this, the next time we see Dragonstone in this show, I'm going to have a massive rage. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah.
But now him and Marjorie are in prison, so I'm assuming there'll be developments there.
Yes, that is very true.
At least there are consequences.
Shall we move on from King's Landing?
Oh, do we though? Do we though?
Well, the one thing,
about what we had to do about
the main event, the one thing we haven't talked about yet is what the title of the episode is named after, and that is Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, the phrase of the Martell house. So, where do we start with this shit? This was...
cringe, is what I say.
Yep, it was not taken seriously in the slightest. It did lead to some funny Bronn lines, but in terms of the actual narrative, it's really, really, really dumb. Like, they have this little buddy cop dynamic, and then they just stroll in behind the pack, walk into the water gardens.
No one notices them at all.
Myrcella is having a nice pash with Trystane. They're talking about, like, you know, oh, I want to be married to you. Like, the only character trait is that they're young and they're in love, and it's just very, very simple. And then Jaime is just like, Myrcella? And you do get the sort of like it felt like something out of like an American comedy movie where it's just like, oh, this boy is kissing my daughter. Like he was very upset by the man who was taking his daughter. Very cliched. Then the Sand Snakes come in with their fucking whips after Ilaria Sand in her secret chamber gives them a pep talk. And we get a very, very poorly choreographed and poorly edited action scene that was really dumb and stupid. The Sand Snakes make very cringe Xena Warrior Princess try-hard lines. Ario Hotar comes in with his guards. I actually think Ario Hotar was quite funny in this. I loved the line where he says, when you were whole, it would have made for a great fight. I loved that line.
Oh yeah, that was good.
That was cool. He's my favorite thing about Dawn, is Ario Hotar. And yeah, they all drop their swords. Bronn makes a remark about he's just like, well, would
they drop their swords and their whips are just right for sword combat. Whips are great.
Oh yeah. And Bronn's like, you fighting us for a little girl, or something like that. They somehow find Ilaria in her secret chamber, and they arrest her. And yeah, that was that. It was really shit. It was really shit.
Yeah, the sort of it's this weird thing where they have the characters give off really smug face faces that like when they got all captured, and it's like, oh, that's what your characters are, really? Is that what you are? You're yeah. It's,
God, remember
it's very very cringe.
Remember Jamie in season 3? How amazing he was.
Yeah, I do.
2 seasons later, he's doing this. It's so.
Yeah, also, what's her name? Marcella,
yeah.
Marcella, yeah. Like I said, she's in another show called Servant, for 4 seasons, and she's very strange in it. And when I recognized, I was like, oh yeah, that show. I remember watching that. That was strange. It's just as weird. Not actually, no. Servant is weirder than this. Yeah.
That's M. Night Shyamalan.
I'm very surprised to recognize it.
Yeah.
Yes, it was created by M. Night Shyamalan. He directs a couple of episodes. He doesn't write every episode, but I think he gives the overall story, and it's fucking strange. It's one of those shows where I don't know if I want to show it to you or not, because on one hand, it's 4 seasons, but on the other hand, it's very fucking strange and funny.
Right. I mean, I don't think.
But yeah.
To sort of divert it back to Dawn, I don't think this was strange. I just think it was shit. It was just really lame.
Yeah, exactly. But like, what I mean is like, there's a lot of cringe to this.
But it kind of it kind of just had everything, right? It had poor dialogue, poor acting, poor action, poor editing, poor direction, poor writing. It was just everything was off. It was such a clusterfuck.
The fucking lines that were like, I am something Martell, the daughter of Oberyn.
I am Orbara Sand.
I fight for Dawn. Who do you fight for? God.
Yeah, no, it was lame. It sucks because, Ariane Martell, who is not in the show, is one of my favorite POV characters to read in the books. Her story in Dawn in A Feast for Crows is lovely, and she's also in A Dance of Dragons as well. And it's just, God, it's just so lame. And it's just the water guns too. We don't get to see Sunspear. We don't get to see the desert. We don't get to see anything.
Brongo is like, you fight well for a little girl, just to trigger her. It's just like, oh, that's what your characters are. You get easily triggered.
Yeah, the only things I liked about Dawn in this episode were I liked Ario Hotar and I liked Bronn's jokes. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Also, I just want to remind everyone that Jamie took a sellsword to this. He's trusting a sellsword with this mission, where there's like Dawnish girls around. It's just, there's so many things that are just so out of place here. Yeah. I know that a lot of book readers, when they saw this episode, they're like, oh god, what have they done? What have they done to Dawn? It feels like a different show, the Dawn stuff. It's just weird. Really strange contrast. And it just kind of feels like it has no piss poor effort.
And
you know?
now they're captured. There'll be some sort of there'll be something that goes on in the next couple.
Yeah.
Episodes.
I'm sure.
They'll get out by the end of the season.
I'm sure the way that this is all resolved is going to be very well written, isn't it? I'm sure that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the first half of this episode had some really decent stuff, and then the second half just kind of fell apart, really. It was a disaster. Very strange. Anything else you want to say about any characters before I move on to reception?
No, not really.
Yeah. So this episode received polarized reviews from critics and fans. And at the time it came out, it was considered the lowest of any episode in the series at that time. Of course, season 8 has come since then, and it's completely blown this out of the water in terms of shit reception. Like at least I could actually see the episode, right? At least I could the lighting was there. I could actually see what was happening. At least there's a visual standard. But the critical consensus states unbalanced storytelling, unnecessary excessive brutality, add up to a disturbing viewing, although still includes enough plot revelations to offer hope for future episodes. Most of the professional criticism concerned the decision to have Ramsay rape Sansa on their wedding night. Most critics describing the scene as gratuitous and artistically unnecessary. The grim scene was difficult for the show to justify. Again, like I said, it's harder to justify when it's Sansa because it doesn't work for her character. It doesn't work at all. And it just feels like Dave and Dan wanted to do the subversion of what Tyrion's wedding night was like with her. You know, how she was taking her lace off and Tyrion said don't, whereas Ramsay tears it off her. That's kind of how it felt to me, and it's just this very strange, unsettling thematic connection. It's like you get a lot of thematic connections throughout the show, but this is one where it's like it's almost a bit sociopathic in the way it connects the episodes together and the stories. Because they mention that scene in that, at the end of the episode, she talks about how Tyrion didn't touch her.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rape scene undercuts all the agency that's been growing in Sansa since the end of the last season. I agree. 100% I agree. Removes all of her agency. I never advocate that Game of Thrones shy away from edgy plots out of fear or pushback or controversy, but edgy plots should always accomplish something above pure titillation or shock value, and what exactly was accomplished here? Well, it doesn't accomplish what it needs to because it's mainly to do with the fact that it's the wrong character in the scene and in the entire storyline. And like we explained before, it just makes Littlefinger look even more stupid. I continue to be astonished that showrunners Benioff and Weiss still apparently believe that their tendency to ramp up the sex violence and especially sexual violence of the source material is a strength rather than a defining weakness of their adaptation. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're able to bring it to TV in a way that works. It seems like they make a lot of mistakes in bringing it to the screen. Like we said with season 4 episode 3, the Jaime Cersei sex scene in the Sept of Baelor, it's completely botched. All disapproved of the decision to use Sansa's victimization as a motivating agent for Theon, saying the scene undermines Sansa's character development. Was it really important to make a scene about Theon's pain? That important? Again, it's like, this is what I mean when I say, when it was Jane Poole, it was solely focused on his motivation without devaluing someone else's character arc. It's sacrificing Sansa like a lamb for Theon here, whereas the former isn't sacrificing anything. It's just Reek's point of view. having to live through that experience that Ramsay's putting him through, which works a lot. It is still grotesque, but it works much better that way. By involving a multi-dimensional main character instead of a one introduced primarily to suffer, the series has a chance to grant the story with gravity and seriousness as it deserves. But that doesn't work. Yeah, there's a lot of discourse about this, because there was a lot of normies saying, there's a lot of people saying, this was too far, this is breaking a standard. And then you got people on the other end of the extreme saying, oh, why are we criticizing rape in a show like this where it should be expected? And it's like, it's not really about, I don't think it's about the extremity of the content that's the issue, it's how it's utilized within character. That's the main problem I have with it. Is like, I don't think necessarily having a rape scene is a bad thing. I just think you have to write it in a way that works well. And I don't think it works well for Sansa's character in this episode. I will say though, Alfie Allen nailed his performance in this episode as Reek.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I mean, he always does, but
Absolutely.
he sold that character. The horror of the scene, he really sold that. Sophie Turner defended the scene as an artistic challenge for herself as an actor, saying, "When I read that scene, I kinda loved it. I loved the way Ramsay had Theon watching. It was also messed up. It's also so daunting for me to do it. I think it's going to be the most challenging season for me so far, just because it's so emotional for her." So she likes how messed up it is.
Mm-hmm.
She had since gone on to interview the Daily Mail about it, and that the scene had inspired her to work for organizations to stop violence against women and to help underprivileged girls and women in Africa in similar situations. Yeah, well, I suppose that's something positive to come out of it. It's helping people in real life.
Yeah.
Some viewers announced that they would stop watching the show because of this scene.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That's pretty damning.
I mean, there was quite a few people that rage quit the show after this episode, but it wasn't just because of that scene, it was also because of Dawn as well. People really hated what they did with Dawn. So yeah. Written by Brian Cogman. Usually he's quite good, but I think this is his massive dud in the show, unfortunately. Compared to his other episodes, it doesn't... I mean, you still, in the first half especially, you still get his signature character-focused stuff, like with, Tyrion and Jorah Mormont, for example. And, the stuff with Arya. There is an actual... there is a heart there to what he does, and it is consistent with his other episodes, like the last episode that he wrote, Kill the Boy, was very Brian Cogman. But I think being lumped with Dawn and with Ramsay and Sansa because of David Nann's, decision to change creative, it makes for a very challenging adaptation. And unfortunately, I think this is probably, out of all the episodes he wrote for the show, this is probably his wooden spoon compared to all the others. I could be wrong about that. I can't remember that well what he wrote for seasons 6 and 7, so I think when we get to those I might be able to have a better guess of what I think of it overall, but
oh yeah,
this is not his best work, I'll say that much. What I can definitely say is someone who had a very, very, very volatile day, well, not day, but a very volatile time on this episode was the direction by Jeremy Podeswa, because I feel like he showed some really good stuff and he showed some really bad stuff with direction here. And I think the editing also has a lot to do with it, but I feel like there's a lot of errors, especially in the Dawnish stuff. The editing in the Dawn stuff and the direction was really piss poor.
I thought the direction overall, as always, is pretty good, other than the fight scenes. I think the cutting in them a lot lately has been very strange. It's very much what a lot of modern stuff are doing with cuts. It's just, and the writing, obviously, as you said, is very hit and miss this episode.
This season 5, is one of, I think it's the season of the show that it's generally agreed among production that it's the one that got hurt the most by the budget, and that having to do so many storylines and not being able to afford to fully realize them, which is why season 6 onwards is the budget for the episodes, I think, gets massively increased because of some of these issues that they had in season 5, like with the lighting and with the blocking and with the choreography, and everything got so rushed. Not to the standard you'd expect from this show. Budget's a massive, massive thing that let things down.
You would agree.
Yep. Of course, though, the one consistently great thing about this show, as always, the music by Raymond Javadi. Whether it was a really good scene or a really bad scene, I think he delivered massively. What I think my favorite bit of music in this episode in terms of capturing something within a character was what I described before in Bravos, where the waif tells her story to Arya, and then when she says, now was that a truth or a lie, the House of Black and White theme plays with that string, that strange old string, and it sows that doubt in Arya's mind. That was probably my favorite thing about the music in this episode. How about you? Are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
I was just going to say, how about you with the music?
Music was very good throughout, as it normally is. It's always selling the atmosphere. I think especially during the Arya scenes, especially, that music always seems to be like very unique as well compared to the others.
Yes.
Sections of the show. So that's always very memorable.
When we did High Sparrow, we listened to that House of Black and White theme, and it's one of my favorite songs from the show. It's a very, very ominous track. It perfectly fits the tone. I forgot to mention this. I think one of my favorite bits of direction in this episode was when she went into the Wall of Faces. You know, when she saw all the faces in the cabinets. That was very well directed. You're not ready to become no one yet, but you are ready to become someone else. So, shall we listen to some tracks?
I guess we shall. Also, my cat's just come to the room to help, I hope, listen to some music as well.
Oh, yes. Good old Toby. So, our first track is called Before the Old Gods. Obviously, this was the song for the wedding of Sansa Stark and Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah, very fitting.
Yeah.
Very much a lot of depressing elements to it.
Oh, it's a painful listen. It's a really painful song.
Yeah.
Those strings are very pitched and very sad. It's got elements of the Stark theme in there, but they're very distorted and warped.
Yes, on theme at the very least.
Yep. I think Raymond Javadi has nailed what they were going for. I just don't like the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I think he's always on point. He's always on point.
But it's very, very extreme emotion is what I would say is this song. I even from like the first note I felt uncomfortable, but not really. I guess it's not really uncomfortable for the right reasons. Uncomfortable for the wrong reasons. Because I'm not uncomfortable because I feel, sympathy and I feel sad for the character. I feel uncomfortable because of what they've done to the character.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a song, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'd agree.
The second track is from season 6.
Oh my.
And it's also from a very bad scene.
Oh no. So we're getting a little preview.
Well, it was used in this episode. Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken. So it's the theme of the Sand Snakes and Ilaria Sand.
So season 6.
Yeah, it's a bonus track called Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, the same as the episode title.
Okay.
It's the theme of the cringe characters.
Cringe Squad.
You know what? Actually, before we listen to this, Area Hotel was really cool in this episode, but what I really, really despise about this is that he is a point of view character in the books, and his perspective of Prince Duran is actually really interesting. Whereas in this episode, all we got was, "You haven't used that in a while. You might want to use it." Like, it's just that was the extent of it.
Wasn't there a lot? There was a line in this episode, where someone said, I hope you remember this, and then someone replied, "I remember this," or something like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's like first draft dialogue.
A little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, are you ready for Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken?
Yeah.
They reused those sort of bass stringy elements from Prince Oberyn's theme in season 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, so fitting of the Dornish. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Just wish the story was better.
Me too.
I really like the Dornish chapters in the books. I think they're quite fun. Dynamic between Prince Duran and Ariane Martell. I think they're actually really interesting. This is just pathetic. It's really simple and lame is the word I would use. And the choreography is not good, and the acting is not good, the writing's not
really,
good,
no.
the dialogue's not good, the editing's not good, and the direction's not good. The only thing
very, very bad.
I'll give one compliment. I think the costuming is pretty good. You know,
Yeah, that's pretty good.
all
That's
the characters look great, but yeah. That said, in terms of setting though, I wish it was more than just the water gardens. I wish we got Sunspear. I wish we got the deserts. I wish we got, you know, the Danes and all that stuff. There's so much great world building about the Dornish area in the books that we're not really getting. But, you know, it is what it is. Oh yes, the dwarf's cock having magical powers is straight from the books. It's a very George Martin joke.
Yeah.
And said by Holden Halfmaester. Littlefinger has not returned to King's Landing the books. That's correct, because that would be dumb. Why is he gone? Why has he made his way all the way back there? The only contract he makes with Cersei is sending her a request for some old tapestries from his brothel. So just sort of like, you know, very low-key connection as opposed to right up in her face.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is that Roose Bolton didn't trust Littlefinger because he thought that he might be in league with Cersei, and then he is in league with Cersei apparently here, and Cersei doesn't suspect him of being in league with Roose Bolton.
No, we can just ignore that.
It's just a mess. And now, like, Cersei knows where Sansa is as well. Is she not going to ask lots of questions about how does he know that and how did she escape? There's a lot of very strange things here. The justification why Sansa can remarry and marry Ramsay is because she never consummated the marriage with Tyrion. But that's all based on hearsay. It's not really... I mean, who can prove it? Only those who were there, I guess. So, in the books, the Sand Snakes planned to spark a war with the Lannisters, but with different means. Obara wanted to go war directly, Nymeria wanted to assassinate certain key Lannisters, Tyene wanted to make Marcella Queen of Westeros as their puppet, because if you remember, Marcella is older than Tommen, and in Dawn they are not as misogynist, so they would think of her as being a legitimate heir because she is older than Tommen, which is a really interesting element of the books, which they don't really talk about here. They don't give the Sand Snakes that unique of characters. It's just one of them is strong, one of them is uses whips well, and one of them is bronze crush and is Alaria's daughter. That's kind of it, really. And yeah, in the books, they were all curtailed before they could even try to achieve their goals. It was a group led by Arianne Martell, Duran's daughter and heiress, instead of Ilaria Sand, who tried to carry out Tyene's same plan to crown Marcella. No one planned to harm her. And they've cut out Gerald Darkstar Dane as well from the show. He doesn't exist. He has a skirmish with Areo Hotar in the books where Hotar dies. Oh no, not Hotar, bloody Aerys Oakheart dies, I should say. The Kingsguard that escorted Marcella to Dawn, who has just seemingly disappeared and gone back to King's Landing for whatever reason and not looking over Cersei's daughter. Which is, again, a strange decision not to have a Kingsguard in Dawn. I guess that she thought the actual king needed more protection. So the reason why Marjorie Tyrell gets arrested in the books is obviously got nothing to do with Loras, because none of that Loras stuff with Oliver happens, and he's off in Dragonstone. She gets arrested due to false testimonies arranged by Cersei that she was unfaithful to Tommen, which was definitely true, because Tommen was a child in the books and they definitely never had sex. Until he comes of age, and she definitely had other partners. So that was part of it, and all of her cousins were arrested. So if you remember that group of girls, you know, from episode 3, that were giggling when Marjorie was taunting Cersei, basically they all get arrested too in the books. And sort of Cersei's just sort of unseating them. And the one who questions Sansa about her virginity in the books is actually Lysa Arryn, not Ramsay. Because Sansa has never met Ramsay in the books, because that would be stupid. Because why would Littlefinger give her away to him? Another thing against this episode is there was no wall, no Night's Watch with John.
Yeah, there wasn't actually. Yeah, that's
no John,
true.
no Sam, no Stannis. None of that. There was no Brienne of Tarth and Podrick. You'd have to think that Sansa's going to want to light a candle after this, wouldn't you? To let Brienne of Tarth know that she's in mortal danger. Or at least she's being tortured. And of course there was also no Daenerys either, but that's not like a massive sacrifice. At least quality-wise. It is significance-wise, but, you know, whatever. So, I just want to make clear, the reason why Trystane and Marcella don't have much character in the books is because they're literal children. Whereas in the show, they don't have much character because Dave and Dan decided not to give them character. They're just young love birds. You know, young doves, if you will. Also, I forgot to mention this. Something I like about the High Sparrow is he's abusing the legal system. You can tell because he deliberately asks them questions knowing that they're gonna lie, and then uses that to his advantage to arrest them. And Jonathan Pryce's performance, he gives very subtle cues where he goes, "That's all I need to hear." So really, it was just a massive setup, and all he needed was for them to do what he predicted they would do, is lie. Littlefinger's goals remain unclear in the TV series. Yeah, no shit. I don't know what he's wanting to do.
What does he want?
What does Littlefinger want? I want the realm. Wow, the Hall of Faces in the House of Black and White in Bravos was actually built as a fully realized set. So instead of, you know, filling one pillar and then doubling it up digitally, they actually made multiple pillars over 30 feet tall to fill out an entire room. So the production team made 600 individualized faces masks in the set. So it's a handcrafted set that is full scale. That's probably why it looks so good, because it was real. So, the Sand Snakes fight scene, we have trivia specifically about that. The fight scene, which the first half of the season was building to, was heavily criticized in virtually all major professional reviews, most declaring it as one of the worst the TV series has ever produced, filled with lackluster fight choreography, poor camera work, and bad editing. The main cause for the rush production of this sequence was the restrictive nature of filming at Alcazar of Seville, a real-life royal palace in Spain, and UNESCO World Heritage Site. The production team only had 1 week to film in this location, and the preserved nature of the site meant that the physical placement of the cameras was limited. Moreover, it was revealed by Brian Cogman, the production was only allowed to shoot at Alcazar during the day, even though the whole sequence was supposed to take place at night. That would make more sense if it was at night, because then no one would have seen them. Why do they do it in the middle of the day? Like broad daylight. Yes, and the infiltration of the Water Gardens and Laurie's assassination attempt were written in the script itself in nighttime raids, which would make more sense for both their plans and could have lended a more appropriate atmosphere for a fight scene. Many reviewers were also puzzled as to why both Jaime and Bronn and Sand Snakes would mount a brazen daylight attempt to reach Marcella if they were worried about infiltrating past the castle's guards. Yeah, it being in the middle of the day makes it a lot worse, doesn't it? In terms of logic.
Yeah. Not waiting till night to sort of do it in the night, which would probably be a bit more easier, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not like they're not on a time limit as well. So like, and like it's not like she's suddenly going to be murdered by them at some point. At least from their perspective.
So apparently the reason why the editing is so shit and the camera work is so shit is because the form of martial arts required for those whips is very difficult to learn in a quick time. So they had to use stunt doubles that know how to use that martial art, and that's why the camera had to keep cutting so you wouldn't notice it's not the same person. And they didn't have the budget to CGI the faces properly. So that's one of the reasons why the cuts were so weird and the angles were so weird. and of course, because of the location they were in, they couldn't do much actual damage to it, so they had to be very limited in what they were doing in the fight. See, the thing is, there's a way to fix this, because when they have the fight in the books between Ario Hotar and Ares Okart, it happens in the middle of the desert. It doesn't happen in the water gardens, it doesn't happen in one of the cities, and I feel like there is a way you could just have... Like, imagine if somehow, let's say you have to do this story, Jamie somehow gets Marcella out of the water gardens and gets her through the middle of the desert, and then the sand snakes meet them in the sand. Wouldn't that be better? And you could do way more with the scene? You know, logistically speaking?
Possibly.
I mean, I guess they already did fights in the sand, didn't they? Like the one where Jamie caught the sword with his hand. Now let's move on to the trivia about Sansa's wedding night scene with Ramsay. The MarySue.com officially announced that they will no longer actively promote the TV series, including cancelling their running recap and review article due to this scene.
Right.
US Senator Claire McCaskill publicly announced on her Twitter account that she was similarly going to stop watching the TV show entirely after this episode. She said...
Oh, boy.
Fucking politicians are against this. She said, okay, I'm done, Game of Thrones. Water Garden, stupid, gratuitous rape scene, disgusting and unacceptable. It was a rocky ride that just ended.
The rape scene and Water Gardens were that bad.
Yep. Wired, this one reads strange. Wired Laura Hudson says, in general, I'm not a big fan of people getting raped in entertainment as a manipulative way to heightening the stakes, but I'm even less of a fan of people getting raped in entertainment when it accomplishes nothing. It's not heightening
stakes, it's just to be disturbing, and that's all the issue.
Yeah. Even
less... nothing changed in terms of stakes and like the world. It's to do with those three characters in that scene. To be fair.
Yep. Even less of a fan of people getting raped in entertainment when it accomplishes absolutely nothing.
That's true. That is true.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It doesn't accomplish what it wants to, for sure.
No.
Dave and Dan do not know how to do rape scenes, do they?
No.
You know what would have been interesting? What if they did a storyline where Sansa Stark tried to manipulate Ramsay, and she played along with his bullshit? I'm not sure if it would.
That is a way they could have.
Not sure if it would work for the brutality of his character, I guess, because he is much more extreme than you'd think. But
yeah,
for her character, at least, it might. Like it. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way around this. Just have her stay in the Vale and have her marry Harold Harding. It's just obvious. The scene completely altered the relationship between Theon and Sansa. As for why Theon didn't save Sansa, she denounced it as a kind of cliche. Jesus Christ, there's fucking paragraphs about this. It's so people had a lot to say when this episode came out.
I imagine, it doesn't surprise me.
The first thought about merging Sansa and Bolton storylines happened during season 2 with the showrunners. Very interesting. Well, obviously season 2 was the first one to come out after they would have read A Dance with Dragons, which is the book where Jane Poole gets raped by Theon and Ramsay. Obviously Theon didn't want to do it, but you know, it is what it is. Part of the reason why the writers trying to justify Sansa being in this storyline is that she's coming back to her home and she's seeing it all broken. I think thematically there is something to that, but this is not the story to tell.
Definitely.
This is not the story to tell. Oh boy. Anyway, viewership. So, last time we were, we've been declining all season in numbers. Last time was 6.56. And the highest the show's had was episode 1, which was 8.0. So it has dipped quite a bit. This episode got 6.24. So it has dropped even more. And it was not because of some holiday or anything, it just dropped on a normal night.
I'm now very curious what the next episode's going to be, more so.
Yeah, after this one.
Does it go down dramatically, or does it rise because of the controversy?
Yeah, is it like, ooh, I'm not watching this anymore, or is it, oh my god, did you see what happened on Game of Thrones? It was fucking crazy. You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Give your conclusion and rating out of 10 for Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken.
Oh, there's like half this episode that's good, and then there's half of this episode that's really cringe and shit and disturbing. Is it the worst episode of the show? No, because not all of it is terrible. I get the final scene is strange and disturbing, and I know a lot of people despise it, but there are episodes of this show that are way worse written overall from start to finish. And even having moments that I think are more damaging to the show narratively, and that's what we're judging it on. I get that more, like, not moral, that's not the right word, but like I understand why people don't like the final scene and why it's such a like glaring issue. But this isn't the worst episode. I think that the last episode of season 4 is worse than this.
And the second episode of this season.
And the second episode of this season, yeah. What did I give episode 2 of this season?
You gave it a 3.
I think those two are just slightly worse, but I don't do.
Yeah, so Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken is an infamous episode. I do think it gets overhated in the grand scheme of things because I think there's much worse in this show. Some of it was before it and very much after it. When you look at later seasons, Jesus Christ, there's nowhere near level of that. You know, I had things to complain about this episode, but I wasn't enraged like I was with the children, and I'm not enraged in the way that I will be when we get to later stuff that just drives me insane. Especially with stuff like seasons 7 and 8, holy fuck. But, yeah, this had some decent stuff in the first 20 minutes, like, you know, with Arya. I think the Arya stuff in Bravos this episode is actually underrated. I think a lot of people don't really get it, but it does things with the characters that work in a way. I think the Tyrion Jorah Mormont stuff is quite good. King's Landing's a mixed bag. The Littlefinger stuff is really stupid. The Loras Tyrell stuff doesn't work, but then you've got stuff like Olenna and Cersei, and, you know, Marjorie's okay this episode. Tommen is in character. The High Sparrow is really good. And there's that scene with Cersei and Olenna that's fantastic. But then, of course, you get Dawn, which is just cringe and really poorly done, and it's just so sloppy. And then the Winterfell stuff is disturbing. Sansa being part of it is very annoying. It's not right for her character. It takes something in the books that's already on the edge, and it makes it worse by the fact that you have a character that shouldn't be there in it. And I understand why this is such a hated episode because of how extreme the sensitivity of it is. But, and you know, this does have like a smorgasbord of a bunch of things that are wrong. But I don't think the lasting ramifications and sort of the implications of the episode are as extreme as some of the other stuff that pisses me off more, like the stuff that really fucks up characters and story and, you know, major ways. I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 10. I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 10. Yeah. Still a bad episode overall, but it's not bottom of the bottom like some people say it is. There's some people that would give this like a 1, and I think that's really harsh. Yeah. Next time is season 5, episode 7, which is called The Gift. That's that region below the wall is called The Gift.
The Gift.
So yeah, season 5, episode 7 is called The Gift. Your anticipations for The Gift?
Well, seemingly we're going back to the wall, thank God, because this season needs it badly. and I hope it's good. But yes, I don't know what to expect now from a lot of things. Littlefinger is a bit strange. Everything in Winterfell has now got this weird, eerie sort of cloud over it, really, going forward, that I don't know how it's going to recover. Dawn will continue to be cringe. Maybe they can hopefully keep up this sort of now start of run of episodes where Tyrion and Mormont are like Jorah Mormont are not, they can actually have some decent interactions, because there were a couple of nice things here for them, and hopefully maybe we'll get some lead up to the fighting pits. That'd be quite neat. Yeah, that's sort of my anticipation at the moment. And King's Landing, I don't know what to expect from that going forward in this season.
Yeah, well, King's Landing was pretty good up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, at least. Outside of the Loras Tyrell stuff. But once Littlefinger returned, it's just like, oh god. What are we doing? Yeah, Braavos. Arya's going to have a new mission from the Faceless Men, now that she's leveled up, if you will, in her little assassin side story. So yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. There's some stuff. Stannis Baratheon is going south, so there's something to that. It's not all doom and gloom, but there's a lot of concern. But what you can hope for is that the next episode is like a High Sparrow or a Kill the Boy, and not like a House of Black and White or like this episode. I mean, Sons of the Harpy was actually a decent episode until the ending. The Barristan death ruined it.
Yeah, that was a very big factor.
Yeah, and unfortunately with this episode we have dipped back into the doldrums again, but who knows what the next episode will be like. Well, I do, because I've seen it. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you next time for The Gift. I bid you adieu, a good night, and a goodbye. A bang.